Hey guys, welcome to the Tech Career Booster channel. My name is Josh Ballardine, and in today's video I want to talk about a day in the life of 6 different devs. I want to talk about a front-end dev, a back-end dev, a full-stack dev, a DevOps engineer, a mobile developer, and also a game developer. So if you are sort of in between choosing which career you want to follow or which specific area you want to do, stay with me and feel like it is to be a dev for a day, or what's the routine for each of those devs for one day. And before we proceed, don't forget to leave your thumbs up and recommend this video to someone you think it's going to be useful for. So with no more waiting, let's dive deep on that. First thing, what's a front-end developer and how it's a day in the life of a front-end developer? Basically, a front-end developer is the guy who is creating front-end code. And what front-end means, for those who are not familiar with front-end is the interface, is what the users can see, especially in web applications. When we talk about front-end, we are talking about what's inside of the browser, what's the interface the user interacts with. You probably have heard about UI, UX. It means user interface or user experience. That's all where the front-end dev is going to be working. And which languages this guy is using? This guy is usually using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and other things to actually build the front-end components, to build drop-downs, to build edit lists, to build anything like you can see in a web application or even in a local application in the front end. That's what the front dev is doing. And how it would be like a day in the life of a front-end dev. Let's assume a front-end the front-end dev is coming to work. He's working on an agile team, so he's going to have his stand-up early in the morning, and after stand-up, he's going to pick a task to do. What that task would be, what the task the front-end dev is doing. One example could be refactoring a UI component. What a UI component is? UI components, all the components you can see in the user interface. And which components is that? In that day of the life of a front-end dev, he's going to be updating the navigation menu to include a drop-down list. So what's that? So he's going to come in the morning, go to his stand-up meeting. After the meeting, he's going to get that task from the backlog, from the list of tasks the team has to do. And the task says you have to include a drop-down list into the navigation menu. So you guys probably are familiar with websites. You can have navigation menus, let's say a top navigation menu where you have many items to click in the top. And now to improve the user experience, they want to have a drop-down. So when you click in the first item or in one of the items, a drop-down is going to open. That's an example of a day in the life of a front-end dev. So that's going to be his task for the day, or her task. The front-end dev is going to be doing that drop-down list for the menu. Is that going to take a day? Don't know. Depends on many things, many variables, many different things. It can take up just a few minutes, or it can take up a day or two. Depends on what's involved in there. Depends how the list was built, how the menu was built, which framework is in there, if there is a framework in place, if there is not. We have been talking about all these terms and jargons in a previous video, so if you didn't see that, go back to my channel and have a look in the jargons video, so you're going to understand a little bit better the language I'm talking here. If you are not quite getting that, watch the other video and you're going to understand the jargons and terms I'm talking. Getting back here, the front-end dev, a day in his life is going to be, this day specifically in his life is going to be including this drop-down list in the menu. Let's go to the second type of dev, a backend developer. What is a backend developer and what does it do? A backend developer is basically the one creating the server-side logic. When we were talking about front end, we were talking about client side. So everything is running in the client side was front end. Everything running the back end side on the server side is actually back end. So server side, back end developer, they are going to be taking care of all the logic and all the stuff in the back side. For example, languages this guy is going to use can be .NET, Java, PHP, Ruby, Python, any server-side language. And also they're going to be doing most of the time logic and processing algorithms to actually run in the server. What would be a task in a day of a back-end developer? If a front-end developer was creating a menu drop-down list, what a back-end developer is going to be creating? A back-end developer could be creating an API endpoint, for example. An API endpoint with that fetches user profile data from database. What's involved in that? What they're going to be doing specifically? Look, an API endpoint, they're going to first see if they have a framework for the APIs. They probably have. If they are building that in a system which is already deployed or system which already has users, they probably have other endpoints already. So they have sort of framework in place or anything which is already there. It's going to grab that framework or that methodology to do the APIs. It's going to use the same methodology, and it's going to create the code, create the logic or the algorithm to actually grab the request, processes that request, send that to the database, fetch the user profile data, massage that data if it's needed, adapt that data to anything that needs to be adapted to actually respond to the front end, and then give the response probably in a JSON format to the front end. That's what the backend developer is going to be doing as an example of a daily task. That's a very common, usual task in the day-to-day for the backend developers. It's actually doing something the server side. And that's gonna lead us to the next one, which is a day in the full stack developer. An example of a day of a full stack developer. What a full stack developer is basically a combination of a front end and back end. A full stack devs are the ones able to do both. They are able to do front end, they are able to do back end, and they usually build functionalities and features from end to end. So they built that from the front end up to the back end. They built everything. They built all the functionality. So they're basically both front end and back end, and they do a wider range of tasks. They basically can do more things than just the front end dev or just the back end dev. Obviously, to become a full stack, you're going to have to study a bit more. You're going to have to learn languages and components and frameworks for both sides. So it's going to take you more time to become a full stack than to actually become just a front end or just a back end dev. But we can see in the market, there are a lot of positions requiring a full stack dev. Some companies, they actually want their team to be able to work in both sides, and they usually hire for full stacks. And what's going to be a feature or an example of a task in a day of full stack dev? A full stack dev, for example, this guy could be implementing a commenting system for a blog or for an e-commerce. Let's say the comment system for the blog, what the full stack dev is going to be doing. He's going to be doing everything, all the tasks involved in that, all the micro tasks involved in that commenting system, which probably is going to involve some front-end components. It's going to get the box to type the comment, the button to actually submit the comment or to delete the comment. All that interface is going to be built by the full stack dev. And also when you're hitting save or send the comment, the full stack dev is going to be building the backend side as well, which is going to grab that comment, process that data, check for security stuff, save that database, give a response to the front end saying that was saved to the database, and then he's going to go back to the front end, see grab that response and display to the user. So it's all the flow, all the tasks in the process involved in creating a feature. So usually the full stack devs, they do all things involved in a specific feature, like this commenting system, for example. Another example could be in an e-commerce when you have to rate a product. You go and give like 5 stars to a product. The full stack dev is going to be building like the stars, changing the color of the stars, and when you hit the star, it's going to send something to the backend. The backend is going to grab that, save that to the database, and give a confirmation to the front end. All those tasks a full stack dev is going to be doing. While if we had different roles, we would need 2 devs to actually build that feature. One just to build the stars and the style and the colors in the front end, and another dev in the back end to build an API to actually listen for that rate and then save that in the database for that specific product and give a response to the front end. So while we need 2 devs, front and back, to do a full feature in a specific team, in another team we may have a full stack dev which is actually able to do end-to-end task or end-to-end implementation of a component. And then we can talk about the other type of devs, which is sort of new to the market. These 3 we were talking about, they have been around for a while now, for a long time actually. The DevOps Engineer, it comes up later on. I wouldn't say it's new anymore. It's been around for a while already. But I would say it's younger than actually the other types of devs. And what a DevOps engineer is, a DevOps is a developer who takes care of the infrastructure code as well as application code. So DevOps, they are mostly concerned about infrastructure and deployment of code, and they usually automate that. They usually automate the infrastructure and they automate the deployment. Nowadays, we have infrastructure as a code. So how it used to work in the past? In the past, we used to have infrastructure to create servers and connect them and connect the servers and create networks between them and put firewalls and security layers and all those things. Usually, the infrastructure team, they had to go to those servers and create all of those things manually. And if they had to replicate that to another environment, they had to go to the other environment and do the same thing, and then do the same thing again and again. And then they realized it was a repetitive job. They was repeating the same work again and again and again. And then they come up with this new concept as infrastructure as a code. And now we can actually code to build some infrastructure. We can code to spin up new servers, new VMs, virtual machines, and to connect them through networks and to create firewalls and to create other layers of security, everything in the network, and then expose just the ones which needs to be exposed to the internet. They can code all of that and also code the deployment of a system. You can have a code or an algorithm to actually process the deployment. Once you check that in a version control system like Git, they can have a pipeline to actually go and test all the code. And if all the tests are passed, I'm talking about automated tests, if all the automated tests are passed, it's actually going to deploy that code to a server, or they're going to deploy that code to a production. All those things, they are done by a DevOps engineer. So a DevOps engineer is going to be concerned about all that infrastructure, usually as a code. So they're going to code for that. That's why it's called DevOps, because this guy, he has to understand about infrastructure. Also, he has to understand about coding. He's going to have to code the infrastructure he want to build. An example of task a day in a life of that guy would be actually setting up a new automated testing pipeline, as I just mentioned. Like, he's going to come in the morning, he's going to have his daily stand-up meeting, and after that, what he's going to be doing, he's going to sit down and start to build the new testing pipeline. What's involved in a new testing pipeline? Usually it's involved to get the code base from a Git system. So it's going to get that from GitHub or from somewhere else. And you can build the pipeline even in GitHub or in another infrastructure system. You're going to build the pipeline to grab that code, run a series of tests. So you're going to run many automated tests. And after that, you're going to be deploying that to a different server. We even can have different stages of testing. We can have automated tests, for example, and then if it passes the automated test, we can deploy to a testing server where we're going to have manual tests. And then if all manual tests are passed, then we can run a second phase of the deployment, which is going to deploy that to production. So all that pipeline is going to be built by the DevOps engineer. What else a DevOps engineer could be doing? It could be actually troubleshooting across platform and applications when we have some issue. Let's say we have an issue, something is not working and no one can actually identify a bug in the software itself. So if the bug is not in the software, it could be in the infrastructure. And if it is in the infrastructure, the DevOps engineer is the one who's actually going to troubleshoot that and try to find where the problem is. So that's the DevOps engineer. And the next one I want to talk about is actually the mobile developer. What the mobile developer is going to be doing. Mobile developer, as the name is self-explanatory, it's going to be creating mobile apps. It's going to build apps for mobile devices, basically iPhones, iPad, Android phones, tablets, any mobile device which runs an app is going to require a mobile developer to actually create those apps for that device. So what's going to be a day in the life of a mobile developer? Mobile developer could be building a new screen for a mobile app. For example, let's say if you have an app for an e-commerce like Amazon or eBay, that's an e-commerce site, and then the task for that dev is going to be build the product listing screen. So he's going to create the code and the interface for that specific listing products. So it's going to list the products in that e-commerce platform. It can be similar to the front-end dev, but the main difference is front-end devs, they are working for web, especially for laptops and computers. And the mobile app developer, they are actually creating apps. And those apps, they have to work in the different platforms. They are usually OS specific. So they are specific for the operating system for the mobile device you are building for. Like for example, iOS for Apple and Android for other phones like Samsung. So that's the main difference. And there are specific languages for mobile developers as well. Mobile developers can develop in specific languages for the OS. There is a specific language for iOS, which is Swift. There is a language for Android, which is you can build in Java, which was the old way, or you can build in Kotlin, which is the newer way to actually build for Android. And we do have like cross-platform languages, for example, Flutter or React Native are the frameworks to actually build for cross-platform. So you can build just one app and you can run that in different mobile devices. That's what the mobile developers are going to be using, and that's going to be a day in a life of a mobile developer. And then we can have actually game developers. That's the last but not least. What game developers does, again, self-explanatory, they build games. So they can write a game script, they can create a game environment, they can design a character interaction, For example, when a character in the game, let's say you have a person in the game, and that person is going to be doing some actions and the interactions with the user. So what the game developer is going to be doing, he's going to be creating those interactions. For example, one example is a new character interaction, pick up objects in the game. So it's going to pick up a gun, it's going to pick up fruits, whatever. It can be a type of interaction. Usually we have engines where they build the games on top of those engines. So you don't have to build things from scratch when you're building a game. But a game developer can be working in different sides. There is a huge market for game developers, which is just work on top of an engine, build a game on top of an engine, which is going to speed up the development of that game. But the game developer can also be building their own engines. It's going to require way more knowledge and way more experience, probably, but you can build your own engine as well. It is very hard. It's very time consuming. But usually by the price the games are sold, and for this market, it's usually a good market to be in. And it's actually hard to find game developers. Most of the developers, when they start a career, they go for web development, for mobile development, but it's not very easy to find game developers, just because it requires more knowledge, not just about coding, but also about design, and about interaction between user experience and those engines. I would say if we get for a difficulty level, the game development is the hardest one, because you have to understand about different areas. Even video editing, you're going to be editing sorts of videos and timelines, and it's a bit harder than the other ones, but it does compensate that. It is a good area to be with. That was all, guys. That's all the 6 types of developers. And if you are wondering which one is actually better for you, I do recommend you try to see yourself. As I mentioned, I gave you examples of a day in the life of each of them. And if you think about your life, what do you think is going to make you happier? Do you think you're going to be happier creating something for a game, or creating something for a mobile device, or create some logic for the backend, or you can see yourself create some logic for the front end, or for both front end and back end, so you can become a full stack. If you can see yourself in one of those, that's going to be your preference. So you can actually pursue that career, and you can learn the proper languages and the proper things to actually do that. I know it can be a bit overwhelming in the beginning. You have so many languages to learn, you have so many things to go for, and you can be a bit confused and not knowing where to go. And so I hope this video can actually help you to identify which one you're gonna be happy at doing, which one you're gonna most enjoy. And that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave your thumbs up and share that with someone you think is gonna like it. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.